The relationship between IB, brokerage and trader is a well-worn relationship. The question is it too well-worn, and will reform have to come? Introducing brokers within the retail FX industry have been relied on by many retail companies for almost 10 years or so now. So it's a well-organized, well-known and widely used method of attracting good business in good regions with no commitment from the actual broker itself. But isn't that the problem in itself?
Yes. Well, actually, I'd like to rephrase that. Not as a well-used model, it's a well-worn model.
It is a well-worn model, yes.
The introduce a broker concept came about because firms, FX firms, CFD firms, were looking at how can they get a larger part of the marketplace and reduce their costs on digital marketing. If you look at the typical cost of acquiring a new customer,
very expensive.
I think it's around about £1,280, if I remember correctly.
$1,500, yes, you're absolutely right.
So what they do is they went to introduce a brokers. They said, you know what, we won't pay anything to bring the client on board. However, Mr. Broker, if you manage to get that client to trade, then we will pay you a percentage of the spread.
Yes.
Now, to be clear, that spread is not market spread.
It's not genuine spread.
No, it's a false spread.
It is indeed.
So the B-book operators, those firms that are dependent on the client losing the money, will offer a spread that mimics or is similar pricing to what's in the market, and then they go and establish a spread. So that spread could be 1 pip. It used to be 12 pips.
It did indeed.
But it's become a lot more competitive. Therefore, they offer 1 pip or 2 pip spread. That spread is fictitious. The client trades through the company. The trade is a real live trade accepted by the B-book operator. And if the client wins or loses, the introducer broker gets a percentage of that spread.
So not only are they market makers, the internalizers, not the good quality firms that have got real prime brokerage relationships, but the internalizers are not only market makers, but they're also creating the acquisition market.
Correct.
Themselves.
Absolutely correct. So what you've got a B-book operator who's really at a lower tier of the tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3.
Yes.
They're locking on to market the trader in the street.
That's right.
That trader in the street sees a big advert for any of the major firms, whether it's CMC or IG or Saxo or Gain or FX Pro, whatever the case may be. There's a marketing cost, and say, you know what, I'm going to go with that firm. Or the IB comes along and says, I've got a great operator that you can trade through. Now those trading firms are fair. If you make money, you get paid out.
These are high quality British companies.
If you lose money, then that money goes into generally the back pocket of the firm.
Yes.
However, they're not offsetting or laying off that trade. They're not passing it through to a prime broker. They're holding on to that trade.
Some of them are.
And taking the risk. Some of them
are.
That's correct.
You have IG Group doesn't. They use a price feed, but they're internalizing.
Correct.
You have other companies that operate from there. Okay, Saxo Bank's Danish, but they're operating their prime brokerage from London.
Right.
So they have a prime, but they have a risk management system where they can work out whether it's going to go to them or to the prime brokerage. But that's also fair.
Right.
Because it's a real market, it's a live market.
Right. The system itself generally is fair to pay out to the customer. However, let's focus on the introducer broker.
Yes.
So you've got the introducer broker who's taking a percentage of that spread. If that client only trades one trade but loses £100,000 and the spread was 1 pip, then the actual introducer broker would only get a small percentage of that trade.
Yes.
Where's the true partnership? The true partnership, as you've mentioned many times, Andrew, is in China.
It is indeed. It's the only country in the world where the IB relationship is actually properly used and properly implemented. And it's largely because, we've spoken about this many times, it's largely because there's no other method of operating in China other than through local partners who are actually Chinese companies, because it's illegal and you'll be blocked, and other language and internet related difficulties and money transfer impossibilities and stuff like that. And also the realization by most brokerages, even if they're relatively large, that the Chinese IB is a vast corporate enterprise, just one of them.
Which is often bigger than the actual host company.
Yes, quite often.
So what does that demonstrate? It demonstrates that if these operators go into a true partnership with the IB, and they say, you know what, Mr. IB, we're going to invest with you, like they're forced to in China, then that IB will be far more productive and far more cost effective to the firm.
And also the IB would have a much longer lifespan of his own business, because you highlighted something just now, Mia, which is exactly right, that if you've got a B-book firm, which is like an unaffiliated, unregulated firm that just wants to do the numbers and turn the handle quickly, and they onboard IBs from all over the world, that IB has probably worked for many years to generate his client base. And the client relationship is not between the client and the broker, it's between the client and the IB.
Correct.
They trust their local IB, that's who they're depositing funds with, that's who they're working with. So if there's a model which conflicts, such as you've just highlighted, like the client puts $100,000 deposit, loses all of it, and then they split the losses, that client is now going to go away from his IB and probably to take some kind of action. So the whole thing is a recipe on all three sides to lose all of the business that's been worked
Correct.
for.
It's a conflict.
It is a conflict.
Now, if you look at also the major firms as how they establish IB relationships, the IB among certain firms or many firms is considered the lower level of marketing. In other words, they don't respect the IB to the degree of the IB commanding authority and bringing a high level of business into that firm. Why? Because they're not paying anything for it. See, when they say we'll pay you some spread, the IB's done the marketing, he's done the costing, he's done the travel, he's done everything to get the client on board, zero cost to the actual operator. So the operator sees it as free business.
No commitment.
However,
whatsoever.
the IB has laid out a lot of money to bring that business on board. When the host company and the provider does not engage with the IB and say, you know what, you've showed commitment to us, we'll show commitment to you.
Right.
And not just by saying, by the way, we'll give you some spread, proper commitment, then you'll have a proper partnership. The IB will feel part of the team. The host company will feel as though they've got IB that's committed to them and not just passing himself around the marketplace.
It will also elevate the level of the IB environment.
Correct.
Because, you know, you have IBs. I've got a very good friend of mine, actually, is an IB in the United States, NFA regulated. That he has to be NFA regulated and put down capital to be an IB, and therefore has relationships with all of the big companies. So his company is well recognized as almost the same as an actual brokerage in the US.
Right.
And these people are high level, they've got good relationships, they behave themselves in a good corporate way. It's the right way to sustain the IB model as well as the brokerage model.
Correct.
And the client relationship, why do they use IBs in the first place?
Right.
It was to reduce the costs and give a longer client lifetime value. If you have this set up, it means that this particular IB's client base continues to work with that brokerage.
Correct.
Which is ideal.
I've given many consultancies and advice to the operators on how to change the model of their IBs.
Indeed you have.
And they've seen those IBs being a lot more productive as a result of that model than on the old model is take on any IB who can introduce the auntie, uncle, father, brother, sister, milkman, where they're going to introduce quality clients for longer term.
That's right. And you and I've actually witnessed this. You and I have been in those particular consultations over the years, and I've seen the look of perplexement on the faces of those who don't understand it, and their business model, once they didn't take that advice, didn't go anywhere in regions where IBs are vital.
Correct, absolutely. And you've got also the situation where the actual firms engaging the IB have to change their model. The old model, which is worn out,
yes, it is.
Actually, the fashion today is worn out jeans, but that doesn't apply into the provided B-book operator. They need to change that model to adapt for the next 10 years, something along the lines of the China model. Take a partnership, heavily invest in the IB, and then they've got a flow of capital and longevity over the next 5 to 10 years.
I agree, absolutely. Let's hope that happens, and we will obviously keep working to ensure that brokerages around the world look towards that.
Hopefully.
I think it's a good, sustainable way of working. Thank you very much for joining us, Mir.
Pleasure.
Mir Walensky, CEO of Walensky Financial.
Thank you.
I'm Andrew Sachs-McLeod, CEO of Finance Feeds. Thank you for joining us here in Geneva, Switzerland at Dukas Copy TV. See you next time. Goodbye.